Learnus describes itself as a community of researchers and practitioners brought together in highlighting the potential of developing fields of neuroscience, educational psychology and social anthropology, the science of the brain, to improve the quality of education in Britain.
Jeremy, welcome to the NAPE YouTube site, and you come today to talk to us about Learnus. Is that right?
It is indeed. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be invited onto the NAPE site. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good. And briefly, what is your role in Learnus?
Well, first and foremost, I need to probably point out that I'm still a practitioner. So I work in a very large secondary school over in West London. And I have worked here for an awful long time. So I sort of know what it's like teaching 6 periods a week and dealing with classrooms that have up to 24, 30 students in.
Yes.
So I am still there at the chalk face, as they say. And about, I would say, turn of the millennium, really, so 2000, 2001, I became particularly interested in educational neuroscience, stuff to do with the brain. And so I've spent the last 20 odd years researching and looking into how we can best use some of the sort of academic findings to try and inform educational practice and best educational practice, learning, memory, behavior, etc., etc. And I suppose about 2008, 2009, I came across a wonderful person called Caroline Schott, and she wanted to set up an educational think tank that was a little bit different, where she was hoping to try and get the practitioners like myself to be linked in a sort of bridge way, I suppose, with the academics out there, the university academics, because there was a lot of research that seemed to be going on that wasn't really being fed through to the teaching profession. So we were launched, Learnus was launched in 2012, and we've been going ever since. And basically, we are just that. We are hopefully a think tank that acts as a bridge between the academics that are working in education, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, social anthropology, etc., and the practitioners, the classroom practitioners, primary school teachers, early years teachers, secondary school teachers, etc., etc.
You had a very grand launch, I understand.
We did, yes. We were welcomed by the House of Lords, and we had our launch in the House of Lords.
Very good indeed. So what is Learnus? What does it aim to do? What's its job, if you like?
Well, its job is to act, as I say, as a bridge, as a conduit, a way of getting the ideas from the academics and trying to translate them into good classroom practice. So we get the academics and we get the classroom practitioners and we get them to meet up in various different formats. So sometimes, I mean, I have been to Oxford and Cambridge and UCL and Birkbeck interviewing academics about what it is that they're doing, and how they feel that what they're doing can then translate into better classroom practice. And all of those those interviews can be found on YouTube on the Learnus site.
When Caroline invited me some time ago to give this talk, I was pressed for a title. And because it was far off, I thought, here's a grandiose title, from neuroscientific theories to effective practice in the classroom. It'll bring in the crowds. It's tantalizing. But of course, it raises the problem of, well, how do you do this? What does it mean? How do we get started with trying to go from basic scientific theory to practice in the classroom? It's a very hard problem. The first thing is actually to find the relevant question. There's so many different questions out there, relevant to educational practice. How do we identify one that is doable and that is meaningful and that is important? Because we can't answer every question that's out there as well. And once we have our question, how do we find the relevant science from the millions of pieces of science that are more or less related to the question, or at least that we believe are more or less related to the question we want answered? How do we select the right ones? And many of those pieces of scientific evidence are actually arrived at or obtained in highly artificial constrained contexts that bear very little resemblance to what is actually happening in the classroom. So these problems of selecting the question and selecting the science really require profound interactions between the basic scientists and educational practitioners. And this is exactly the role that Learnus has in mind, and is really what we think is foundational to pushing forward advances in education through the advances of scientific discoveries.
We also offer talks. We offer annual lectures where we invite specialists in that will be willing to talk about, I don't know, memory acquisition, or will be able to talk about maths, able to talk about linguistics and language, those sorts of things. We do an in-person Future Ed conference where we have 4 or 5 speakers that offer various insights. And obviously the audience is made up of classroom practitioners and other academics. So we have an opportunity to sit around together and informally and formally talk to each other about, you know, what our needs are. The academics can find out what the teachers think. The teachers can obviously quiz the academics over the direction of travel, so whether or not what they're doing is too ivory town. It's not going to fit into the day-to-day running of a school. So that sort of thing, really. We offer a CPD program. We also offer presentations and talks. I myself do some different sorts of talks. Some talks I present to students, some parents, some primary school teachers, some secondary school teachers. I've even done a few talks to primary school students. And it's sort of about how the brain works, what changes are going on in the brain, what teachers should be aware of, what primary school students themselves and secondary school students themselves should be aware of as the brain changes, because it's not fixed, it does change. And there are certain sort of I suppose, parts of one's life where the brain is capable of doing some fantastic things. And then you get to our age, sorry, no disrespect meant, and it becomes a bit more difficult. So those sorts of insights, I think, are very, very, very important for teachers, and they come from the academics. So Learnus is a very large community, as you quite rightly say. We have a very large membership, over 3,000 practitioners and people that are interested in education. You've quite rightly pointed out that it includes members of SLT, but it and obviously classroom practitioners, but it includes state schools, it includes private schools, it includes special schools. It includes nursery schools. We've got the educational psychologists that are part of the Learnus family, the Learnus community. We've got members that are working for the Department of Education that are interested in it as well. So it really is a very, very, very wide group of people, a large church, so to speak, of people that are very interested in trying to get this new science of educational neuroscience sort of out there. The other, I think, thing to point out is that parents are, you know, they're very important stakeholders as well. And we have many parents that are also interested in what's going on in educational neuroscience.
Great. Now, you're going to a primary school and you want to talk to a group of teachers and SLT, maybe even teaching assistants, as a group of people really devoted to the learning in their school. What sort of presentation would you give them? Have you got anything to show us?
I have a few actually, but I will just give you just the one, if that's okay. I don't know if you can see this one, but I'm just going to share something like this. I do start off by sort of talking about some of the background of what's going on. This is a little bit of history. I then move on to the brain itself, and we look at the different areas of the brain. It's sort of appropriate. I sort of think if you're going to ask people to consider the brain and you're considering neuroscience, they have to have a bit of an understanding, I suppose, as to which bits of the brain do which. I suppose just as a way of grounding absolutely everybody, so everybody feels that they know just a little bit. We then have to talk these are all just a little bit of fun. But we then have to talk I think it's important, especially for primary school staff, to talk about this wonderful concept of brain plasticity. I also get them to think about sleep and sleep patterns, very important, more so for the higher end primary school students and the younger primary school students. And we also talk about neurotransmitters and the importance of some neurotransmitters. Excuse me, these are the chemicals that go around the brain and that allow information to move from one thing to another. We talk very briefly, but again, I think it's quite important that people understand the structure of the brain. And one of the reasons I talk about the structure of the brain is because it leads me nicely onto this incredible slide here. This is one of my favorite slides, and I think it's every teacher should be aware of it, because this is sort of learning in the brain. So this is the newborn baby, and the newborn baby has a number of these neurons that you can see. And as the newborn baby develops, basically learns, you can see it moving from very few connections to an awful lot of very complicated networks and connections. And learning is basically that. And staff, I think, need to understand a few things, that this is plasticity. This is the opportunity for new connections to be built. And in primary school students, it is absolutely incredible how quickly they can lay down new connections, these wonderful connections, which enable them to make, well, it allows them to memorize things quite quickly, allows them to learn new skills quite quickly. It just gives them this wonderful plastic capacity to, engage in so many different things. And I think it's I think it's one of those slides that is almost an honor to have come across, and you think, wow, that is learning in action. One of the other things that I think is important is this slide as well. For a primary school teacher, is to understand that at birth, not many connections. At 14 years old, when they start going to secondary school, some of those connections have been, basically pruned away, cut away. And yet they're dealing with this absolutely fascinating area of brain development and brain growth as these connections, learning connections, start to form. And the greatest density of connections is around about 10 years old. So up to the age of 10 years old is an absolutely fascinating age. The other thing to mention is we talk about it, and I think it's probably something that the NAPE tried to encourage as well. This actually is paraphrased from a brilliant cognitive psychologist, I think she is, called Alison Gopnik. She's certainly a psychologist, and she works with preschool students and she works with kindergarten students over in the United States of America. And she talks about this idea of being a gardener, not a carpenter. Provide them with the fertile environment, allow them to explore themselves, instead of hoping to sort of, as a carpenter would, try and mold them into things. Up to, she says, sort of 6, but I think in this country probably between 6 and 8. Let them explore things. I say let them play. I don't mean let them play as such, but it's sort of controlled play, but it's a concentration on their skills and skills acquisition, their ability to focus, their ability to, connect with other children. Those sorts of things are really important, as is learning a new language, as is learning a new instrument. All of those wonderful things that the plastic brain of a primary school kid can do. And then as you get into the older part of the primary school, up into year probably 5, 6 and beyond, that's when they learn information. You teach them more information. This stuff here is all about the phonics and about the maths, but it's the skill of phonics, the skill of maths, the skill of reading. So that gives you maybe an insight into. We talk obviously about the importance of sleep and what the need for sleep, which I'm sure your members are very aware of. And then we also talk a little bit about these fantastic neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin. And dopamine is as a really, it's sort of risen in prominence, but it's a very important transmitter that allows people to recall and remember specific events in particular. It's sort of the unexpected thing. And quite often I like for primary school teachers to sort of try and concentrate on where would they have a dopamine moment. It's got to be an unexpected moment. So quite often maybe your members, they take students on year 6 holidays to the Isle of Wight or whatever. Those sorts of moments are the moments that all young people will remember. They're sort of semi-unexpected. And they get such a kick out of them. You can't do them repeatedly, because the moment you try and do it repeatedly, the brain remembers that it's going to happen, it anticipates it's going to happen, and they don't get the same sort of thrill out of it. But those sort of unexpected moments, taking them to the Natural History Museum, or stopping a lesson and going outside and sitting under the oak tree outside and suddenly thinking, well, let's think about the oak tree. Those sorts of moments. And primary school kids are very good at this. This is my excuse to get Arsenal in. But the other neurotransmitter is this transmitter called oxytocin. That sort of, those spud moments that you have, and you high five somebody. This is a neurotransmitter that is produced by the brain when the brain has some sort of physical contact. And it's really quite important. It's that team building and that bonding thing that some primary school teachers are particularly good at. The kid, the student, the child wants to do something because they feel part of Miss Peters's team or Mr. Mohammed's team, or whoever. They believe that they're part of that team. And the oxytocin is really quite important there as well. And then I finish with this, what is quite a powerful statement, isn't it? Your family of origin, your culture, your friends, everything is going to leave this important footprint in your nervous system, your brain.
Yes.
And it's this accumulation of stuff that either constrains where you're going to go or allows you to become who you want to be. And it's just a wonderful age. The primary age is such a wonderful age because of this rare ability that the brain has at that point to make all of these new connections, learn all of these new skills. It's really is. Sometimes it's an honor.
Honestly, I agree with you.
Go in and talk to the primary school teachers, who I have to say I take my hat off to, because they are, talk about mixed ability classes. It's quite remarkable what they do, and also quite remarkable as they watch the progress of these young people. Yes. I mean, in front of them,
very rewarding. You're quite right. The progression of learning from nursery up to the age of 11, end of key stage 2, the progression is huge, absolutely huge. What they can do when they leave to your school, if you like. So for all those reasons, we do as primary school teachers find it incredibly rewarding. Now, I understand on the Learning Skills Research Foundation, there's a particular challenge going on because Learnus is associated with that organisation. Am I right?
Yes, indeed. We're a sort of branch. We're I suppose the sort of think tank that's attached to the Learning Skills Foundation.
Yeah.
And yes, and indeed they do. So I actually have something here, don't I? Here we go. So I can share this with you. This is, can you see that one? This is the Junior Memory Championship. And yeah, it's a very successful primary school-led memory challenge. And I would definitely encourage your members to get in touch. I believe that you'll be able to put a connection to that.
Yes, I'll certainly put a link onto that. And then
and it's mostly for the years 5 and 6.
That's
right. Something for the year 4 students, but certainly the year 5 and 6 students. And yeah, it's incredibly popular, and it's been going for a number of years now. I think over 20 years it's been going, and it'd be great for more people to get involved.
Okay, right. I'll put the link underneath. In fact, it's on there now. And then if you're interested in it, please go to that link and contact the organisers. That would be absolutely great.
And I would definitely encourage them to do it. It's very popular, and it's a great competition. It really is. I mean, there's maths challenge, and they do a sort of spelling bee, but a memory challenge is a little bit different, and yeah, really quite important as well.
That's good. Now, we've already heard about the House of Lords. What sort of influence does Learnus and the Learning Skills Research Foundation have on those politicians who have a responsibility for education policy?
Well, we've actually launched three things through the House of Lords. Learnus was launched through the House of Lords. We've also got a maths anxiety working group as well that have been involved, and that was launched at the House of Lords. Baroness Nikki Morgan was a former education secretary. She hosted that particular event as well. And we've also got our own project, which is called the Big Project, and that was launched at the House of Lords. So we do have, am I allowed to say fingers in pies, I suppose? We sort of have connections and contacts with various people. And as Learnus has grown in popularity and number, and more people have realized that actually education in neuroscience is fundamentally important. More and more people from the policy making groups are getting in contact. We've been heavily involved with the Educational Endowment Fund, the EEF.
Oh, yes.
And we've been involved in an Unlock project, which is talking about teaching science in primary schools specifically. And that's been supported by Department for Education, or was a few years ago now.
Yes.
The Wellcome Foundation have also been, so there are quite a few pressure groups have been involved, and we have a lot of connections with those pressure groups. Sorry again. We also have good connections with the teaching unions, ASCL in particular, we have good connections with. So we are sort of on the periphery applying pressure, more connections, I suppose, through the House of Lords than through the House of Commons, but we have people on our advisory board that are also connected to the Department of Education. So it is important to us, but we don't want to be seen as a political organisation. We want to be seen as a non-apolitical organisation that works right across the political spectrum.
That's certainly good to hear. That's certainly NAPE's position. Is there any sort of areas of the website that you need to bring to our attention, or do you think you've covered most of the areas that we need to discuss today?
I think there's a lot of information on there. I think personally, going through YouTube, the website will take you to some of the videos, but the YouTube videos are sort of in a sense self-explanatory. So
yes, I've seen,
and there are an awful lot of them. And there are some fantastic talks that are on there. A lot of them are to do with primary school. A lot of early years stuff, and a lot of our presentations, our speakers have worked with working memory, looking at primary school. We've got a couple of talks from Cambridge University. Don't want to mention particular names, but there are people that have been involved in working memory acquisition, that people have been involved in early years, plasticity acquisition. We've got an awful lot of very interesting videos on, and I would encourage the members just to go through and have a look.
Right, well, I'll put the YouTube link underneath. I don't know if there's a playlist for primary schools, but I'm sure the titles will be quite clear.
Yeah, there isn't a playlist, but I have been to the CALM lab, which is at Cambridge University, where they deal with young people below the age of pre-teenage years.
Yes.
I have been to the ABC lab at Oxford University, and there they only deal with primary school kids, children. And we've been to the toddler lab, which is connected to Birkbeck, which is a fantastic laboratory. That's a really interesting interview with the people at the toddler lab. It's the first one of its kind in the world, really, and it's connected to, and it only deals with toddlers. So
well, that sounds like a really useful resource for viewers to access through the Learnus YouTube site. That's great. Now, is there anything else you could need to tell us about Learnus and the foundation?
Well, please come and join the family, the community. The more the merrier. The more people that we have involved in it, the more impact we're going to have, and the easier, I suppose, it would be to spread the word. I mean, it is the brain, and we as practitioners that's what we spend our lives doing. We try and connect with each other as colleagues, and it's one brain connecting to another. I've gone again. I'm really sorry.
I'll put the contact details underneath so that members of NAPE or anybody else watching this YouTube can get in contact with Learnus if you want to find out more,
yes,
or indeed,
please do.
If you want to join Learnus.
And it's free. The membership is free, so nothing to worry about. And of course, you can request me. I can come in and deliver at the moment they're still free as well, so I can do free presentations as well. And they are fascinating. I can deliver it to primary school students, parents, teachers. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Well, Jeremy, what can I say? Thank you very much indeed for today's chat about Learnus. I've certainly learned a lot more, and I hope anybody watching this also will make the effort to perhaps follow up on some of the links that we're going to provide. Thank you very much indeed, Jeremy.
Thank you very much for having me, and yes, good luck to NAPE.
Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Take care.